Want to boost productivity by 85%? Just add a robot. You want to freak out your entire team? Just add a robot. The difference between those that use robots successfully within their company culture is the way in which they implement their RPA strategies. It's our job as business leaders to help our communities reframe that conversation of will robots take my job into how will robots help me? And all of that is done through implementation tactics, both technically and culturally. And the first thing we need to do is define the actual robots in the workplace and what they mean, how they influence our internal teams. So there are really two main kinds. Industrial robots, which are the big machinery, think of a big arm that's welding in a caged facility where our human employees rarely enter. And then the collaborative robots, or as we often call them, cobots. And these are working right next to or within the same ecosystem as our human employees. They help them move faster, be more efficient, and ultimately, and most importantly, be safer. So the one we really need to focus on, because they're so closely connected to our human employees, is HRC, or Human Robot Collaboration Strategy. I think it's helpful to kind of influence the narrative by giving people examples of how they actually work, so we can start to buck that visualization of that red-eyed robot chasing us down the street. So there's a variety of examples in different industries of how cobots are involved within the workforce. BMW uses cobots all the time on their assembly line for parts precision work. Amazon in particular has over 200,000 cobots in their warehouses that help move big heavy equipment. We've got surgical robots like Da Vinci that help with healthcare for doctors. And in agriculture, I'm a huge fan of agrotech because I think it's just so cool. But before I nerd out, these are examples of how robots are going in, trimming tomato plants and creating, more of a harvest faster. And you're like, that's super cool and all, Kyler, but how do I actually utilize those efficiencies without completely creating massive disruption in my human team or that take your job chaos? Because really, these cobots are here to handle the boring stuff, the manual stuff, or the back-breaking stuff, where we're lifting things that are unsafe for a human body to lift. So when building an HRC strategy, the last thing you're gonna do is tell no one. Absolute huge, terrible idea. We're gonna start with transparency and explaining the why. And this seems simple to so many people, but if you sit down in an executive workshop or meeting and everyone has a different why, that's a huge flying red flag that this project is in trouble. You need to get aligned and you need to remember the why. It's not something you just secure in executive alignment and budget approval for the project, right? It's what you remind and start each scrum or project status with. Why are we doing this? So that everyone is crystal clear and we don't get any of those sneaky, it's going to steal my job thoughts back into our overall healthy strategy. Go find the gyms on the manufacturing floor, the people that have been there for 30 years that are your most valuable data set, and involve them in the beginning of the project. I can't stress this enough. If you think boomers or Gen X are not technology savvy, you're stupid. Involving these tenured and influential employees in the decision making is going to be extremely helpful to the implementation process and making it stick, so you can ultimately reap the benefits of the ROI on the money you save through these efficiencies. The goal is to create influence or Jedi mind trick your team into understanding why this is a benefit for them. So let's go back to some of our examples. Say you're BMW and you go to your team and you're like, are you tired of doing the same task 1,000 times a day? On the BMW assembly line, our cobots are going to handle all of that repetitive torque wrenching. They're going to save your wrists, your back, and probably your sanity. So instead of doing the same torque wrenching 900 times a day, what you're gonna do is just oversee the robot doing it. You're still gonna have full-time work, absolutely. You are the supervisor of this operating area. You just are gonna have less strain on your body, fewer injuries, and honestly, more interesting work. The robot is the assistant. You are the specialist. In hospitals, a lot of cobots are being used to sterilize and sanitize different equipment. That way, our nurses and techs actually get more patient time, which is what they're best at most of the time. They also get trained on some of these cobots' maintenance. Hello, promotion. We need to explain it so the cobots are seen as a bridge to these higher value roles in the organization, not as a dead end that will steal my job. And really the focus here, and the organizations that are going to be the most competitive and make the most money in the future, are not man or machine or this fight of man versus machine. It's the teams that work together that win, and all of that comes down to how the leadership positions these types of projects. If you want to see maximum ROI, bring your team to the table before implementing the